Hello there, I'm Tony Gale and you are listening to We Are West Ham podcast.
You are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. And since we last spoke, Declan Rice has proved beyond all doubt that he is not only the best central midfielder in England, but he is in fact the best central midfielder in the world. Kept Kevin De Bruyne in his pocket for England. Belgium, the number one ranked team in the world. England sweep them to one side with Deckers pulling the string in the middle. His best mate, Mason Mount, got the fluky winner, but there was not a patch on Rice's performance. West Ham have made another signing. We just don't stop in the transfer window. A huge marquee name, none other than Watford legend Craig Dawson in the prime of his career, and West Ham have splashed out big cash on him. As we speak, the Saeed Benrahma deal, which has been rumbling on and on. You know, the bloke who plays in the left wing position, the same as Grady Diangana. We're bringing him in for around 30 million quid, 12 million more than we sold Diangana from. Lads, I'm pleased to be joined by both of you as always tonight. It's just one transfer after another with West Ham these days. Jonesy, Craig Dawson, looks like Benrahma is about to be confirmed. We're pretty confident that will happen as we're recording the podcast. But how are you? Which of those things that I've covered in the intro makes you feel more enthralled to be a West Ham fan at the moment?
I'm enthralled 100% of the time at the moment, mate, which says a lot. But yeah, it's been a quite good week. Without a game, but we still managed to stay excited, and I'm trying to sound excited as well. And Craig Dawson coming in on loan makes it. I know we'll talk about it in a bit, but in more detail. But that's a good signing just because it's a loan deal, bit of experience. I was a little bit worried that we were going to spend some money on him, but I think it's a positive signing. And if Benrahma comes in as well, I think we're a little bit confused by that one, but you know. If we get it done, then fair enough. It's another player in the books. But yeah, I'm happy, mate. I'm happy. Hopefully, I'll be happy again this time next week, given the weekend's fixture.
Absolutely. I'm delighted to see you in a role, Nick Jones. You mentioned about sounding more exciting this week. We will, of course, get onto that momentarily. Don't you worry. But Tom, nice to see you again, mate. Which one are you most buzzed? I know you're a bit of a Declan fanboy, like we all are. Thoroughly professional performance from him in the week. Doesn't look just showing more and more, be it for England or for West Ham, that it's not just a flash in the pan. He is the real deal. He looked absolutely outstanding, I thought, against Belgium. But yeah, sort of pretty good stuff at the moment.
Yeah, mate, exactly that. Coming into an international break with 2 wins under the belt rarely happens. So positivity was going anyway. And yeah, at least we've got something going in the market. We got Dawson in. We need a centre half. Obviously, it's not the one we all wanted. It's definitely not the one Moyes wanted first choice, but it's a body in there. Absolutely something we needed to be playing this 5 at the back. It was imperative we got somebody through the doors, and to get him in, like Jonesy said, on a loan deal, no outlay. It makes sense. If you're not going to find your top target, get someone in anyway for a little money, and we've done that. So I'm happy with that. Benrahma, I'm really excited about, just because to see that level of talent on the pitch would be really exciting at West Ham against someone who can unlock defences. Obviously, we've gone about it in the wrong way. Shouldn't have sold people to get it, and it's silly, but we will be getting a good player who hopefully can hit the ground running.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sorry, mate. Go on if you.
I was just going to say, it's probably a long way to go in that transfer window. It can all change so quickly, and who knows, Everton will probably swoon in and get him before the next pod. But fingers crossed, mate.
They could swoon in and get him before the end of the pod, Tom, to be quite honest with you. Listen, lads, now, James, we normally do my sort of standard part at the beginning of the show, as everyone who listens will know, is to go through a bit of housekeeping. We encourage people at home to follow us on Twitter at @weare_West Ham. Get in touch on the emails, wearewesthampod@gmail.com, if they've got anything that they want to say to me, you or Tom. And one thing we always encourage people to do is leave us a review on iTunes. You know, ideally, in an ideal world, they go on, they leave us 5 stars and they write some nice words. That is what we're after. Helps us with the old iTunes charts and the general podcast charts, that sort of thing. And this week, one of the We Are West Ham listeners did exactly that, but he had some quite scolding words to say about you, Jonesy, and you were a little bit upset, as I must put on the record, was I on your behalf.
Yeah, I'm a little bit. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry when I read it. I mean, we've had mostly 5-star positive written reviews about what we do every week, and they've always been very, very good. And then suddenly this one popped up from a guy called Phantom Hammer. I would address him. I would address them personally.
Read it out?
I will read it out. Yeah, I would address them personally, but according to them, they're no longer listening. It says, after listening to this podcast for about a year, I've finally given up on it and unsubscribed. I mean, it took them a while to unsubscribe. I mean, at least we got a year's worth of downloads out of him.
Took a year to decide whether that we were crap.
Yeah, exactly. It goes on and says, there are simply other West Ham podcasts that offer more of interest to me. As my title suggests, the title is like listening to your mates chatting down the pub, which I thought that was the point behind podcasts. But
get on to my favourite bit.
We'll go on. I'm trying to avoid this bit. As my title suggests, this is like listening to your mates chatting West Ham in the pub. There's no great insight that you get with some of other podcasts. And James Jones's monotone and mostly unenthusiastic chat could be marketed as a cure for insomnia. Sorry, maybe a bit harsh. I wouldn't do any better, but then I'm not trying to. He's basically had a pop at me. He's had a pop at me, but then admitted, well, I couldn't do any better. So, keep doing what you're doing, chaps. So, God, he's a bit harsh, Phantom Hammer. It's a little bit strong. But at least, I've got a bit of inspiration. So if my media career and my podcasting career don't take off, at least I can set up a couple of how to beat insomnia workshops online and make. I've got a backup career. So if anything, yeah, it's a negative review for the podcast, but it's a positive insight into my backup career, which the government are trying to do anyway. They're trying to get people to retrain at the moment. So I can just see my face with headphones on one of those posters that they're creating. James could cure insomnia in the future. He just doesn't know it yet. Well, now I do. Now I do, Phantom Hammer. Thank you, Phantom Hammer, for that really, really great comment. And I've taken a lot of inspiration for it. So, and I'm going to try and sound a little bit more upbeat from now on, because I didn't know I sound. I mean, do you blame me? You wrote this in September when we were losing football matches. So do you blame me for sounding a little bit unenthusiastic? But I'm here to stay now. I'm happy.
Well, look, you know what? You are obviously now you're the podcast equivalent of whale music, aren't you? Just the thing you put on in the background.
You know what? I think that's even more. I don't know. I don't know what to think about that one, mate. I mean, did you write this?
Yeah.
Is this all your work? Is this your doing?
I was going to say, yeah, don't go on any of my other alter ego accounts on any social media platforms, because you'll find out who Phantom Hammer is. But I think what's funny actually, James, and because all season we do always say, when we ask people to leave us reviews, we say, look, give us 5 stars if you like and write some nice words. And I always say, or if you don't want to write nice words, write that as well. We don't want to be surrounded by a bunch of yes men listeners, do we? We want constructive criticism when it comes. And I've decided that everyone is welcome to write reviews like that in future if they like, because although it might not do any good for the podcast ratings, it was absolutely hilarious. And at first, after feeling bad on your behalf, I having read it a few more times, it's made for some great content at the beginning of the show. Yeah.
Well, if I ever find out who Phantom Hammer is, I'll put him to sleep.
Literally. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks to Phantom Hammer for that excellent start to the podcast. He did only give us 2 stars as well, so
couldn't have been that bad.
There's obviously, he could have given us 1, so there's obviously something
like
in it.
But it was a plant. It's almost as if it was a plant.
But yeah, by me, Tom, we've established that already. Yeah. Well, look, absolutely. Another person, James, who came on the podcast last week was Joshua Jones, the Leicester City fan. We've already taken the mickey out of him, of course, for him saying that Leicester were going to beat West Ham 3-0, I think he predicted. West Ham went and lost. But tonight, delighted to say once again, we've got a huge guest on the We Are West Ham podcast for the Opposition View. It is Charlie Eccleshare, the chief Tottenham correspondent for The Athletic. Thanks very much to Rashane for putting us in touch with him. some huge journalistic names. Who knows? Charlie knows Tottenham inside and out, so it'll be good to get his views later on in the show. Looking forward to that huge game against Spurs this weekend. We've covered Declan Rice already playing well for England, the Saeed Benrahma saga. Josh King is apparently a deal that could also be done before the transfer window shuts. Craig Dawson's come in. We'll cover the Betway charity bets because Chad from Betway is coming on. He's finally sorted out his Wi-Fi in his new house, so we'll talk to him about our first win and the lads' bets for this weekend. We'll cover the headlines of the week. Josh Cullen's emotional farewell letter to the boys. We've got a Twitter poll, as usual. Nice and simple one this week. We're finding out who would West Ham fans and the We Are West Ham listeners prefer to sign, Saeed Benrahma or Josh King. And then, of course, we've got Name That Game. Tom Edwards is the quiz master this week. The scores are a little bit more level. James Jones on 10, me and Tom on 6 each, and we'll wrap up as ever with the West Ham women's segment with women's football expert and sports journalist for the Sun newspaper, Isabel Barker. Pack show tonight, lads. But James, just quickly on that England game before we wrap up this opening segment. Declan Rice, he did play really well, but before we go into that, some excellent news. Another thing we try and do on the We Are West Ham podcast every now and then is a giveaway, and we've got quite a big one this week. It's towards the beginning of the season. We thought we'd kick off with a big one. We've had some prints and some Snugsy dolls before, personalised West Ham goods that we've given away. But this week we've gone nice and simple, haven't we, for the listeners?
Yeah, we've decided because we've got such a loyal fan base in the podcast, minus one.
Apart from Phantom Hammer.
Apart from Phantom Hammer. We've decided to give away a shirt. So that's home shirt, away shirt, third shirt, whatever the winner's choice is. And all you've got to do is enter on Twitter. We're going to tweet out a competition tweet and at @WeAre_West Ham. If you're not already following us, make sure you do. And just, follow the instructions in the tweet when it goes out this week, and make sure you enter for a chance to win a West Ham United shirt of your choice.
Absolutely, yeah. So that'll be if you follow us, like James said there, retweet the competition tweet. And so head over to @WeAre_West Ham. By the time you're listening to this podcast, the tweet will be up towards the top of our profile, and just follow the instructions there to be in with a chance of winning a free replica 2021 West Ham shirt for this season. Thomas, I'll throw to you, your best mate Declan. We all know you love him. Great performance against Belgium. Like I said, showing he's a class act.
Exactly that, mate. And it was really nice to see him actually show what we see every week, because I feel like that was his best best performance in an England shirt by a million miles. He picking it up, he was making drives, he was winning the ball, he looked athletic, he just looked brilliant, he looked really commanding. And he's now, I saw a stat today, West Ham posted an article, he said he's the second most capped midfielder in the squad at the minute, at just 21 years of age. And he's showing that experience. He's already taken to it like a duck to water. And against that team, to put in that sort of performance, it shows that we're not kidding ourselves, and we've got a seriously top player on our hands. And it's exciting. It makes watching England exciting for the first time in a long time, that we've got one of our very own who we've produced, who wears our armband most weekends now, and going out there and doing their job on such a high stage. It's really heartwarming to see it, and it actually makes me want to tune in and watch those England games rather than sit there and moan at Harry Kane putting a few in.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, look, we'll cover loads on the show. We'll delve into the internationals a bit more. Declan Rice, Kufau and Souček carrying on their cute little bromance with the Czech Republic, and King Arthur Masuaku withdrawing from the Congo squad through injury, but it seems to be only precautionary, with him confirming on Twitter that he's not injured. So stay with us for all of that next. So now we have established that Declan Rice is the best central midfielder on the planet. I don't think there's too much else to discuss on the podcast, really, lads. However, two other people who have been doing great things on their international break is Vladimir Kufal and Thomas Souček, who've carried on their cute bromance away with Czech Republic. I saw them both on the field the other night with quite a bright, luminous away kit they had on. Kufal waddling around looking like prime Pablo Zabaleta. But one other grave concern that I had in the week, Tom, was the news that King Arthur Masuaku had withdrawn from the Congo squad, the Democratic Republic of Congo. I think they only had friendlies that they were playing, but he's withdrawn and come back to London.
Yeah, and I think obviously you want to see a player who play for the international team. But I think he's come back as a precaution, and he's almost certain to be in the lineup against Spurs, which is massive news for us because he's almost been one of the main reasons why it's worked so well for us. So to see him pick up that supposed knock, I think everyone in the West Ham Twitter sphere, in the West Ham world, was a little bit worried. But the fact that he's now back, should be raring to go. I think he's even confirmed himself that it was just a precaution and he should be fit and ready to deal with them on Sunday, and we'll need him because he offers us huge width. And like you say, he sadly is morphing into King Arthur. Whether or not you get credit for that, I'll still say no, but I'm sure you'll win me over one day.
Well, just to prove my commitment to the We Are West Ham cause here, Jonesy, on last week's show, you said to me, we were talking about King Arthur, it's become quite public knowledge now, how much I admire him. And you said to me, oh, well, as he obviously listens to the show every week, next week will be the week to get him on, will it? So I thought, you know what, I will take up that mantle. And I actually spoke this week to Arthur Masuaku's agent, their company based in France, in Paris. I got in touch at first, said, hello, explained who I was, and said I'm after speaking to Arthur Masuaku's agent. If you could get back to me, that'd be great. A couple of things to discuss. Got a response, replied again and said, thanks for getting back to me. Explained big fans on the podcast. It'd be great to sort of have a chat with Arthur if we can. Does he know that, I'm sure he's aware that it was us who came up with the King Arthur nickname, and does he want to be on the podcast that he listens to every week? And I've been well and truly blanked, but just so you know, I did actually try because you sent me that challenge and I got as far as speaking to his agent. So, what more do you want?
Yeah, they might come back. Maybe they're just waiting to see whether we're legit or not by talking about it on this week's podcast. Is it really them? So now you've proven that it is actually us making contact with the great man. You never know; they might email you back.
Exactly, and they always say, "What's the rule of you're 7 steps removed from everyone else on the planet?" Well, it's now officially via my WhatsApp. I'm now only 1 step removed from King Arthur Masuaku, although he has liked tens of my tweets before, so we're basically best pals. Tom, away from the international break stuff, like I say, Soufal and Souček. And Kufal, you've got me calling him Soufal.
What's going on here?
What's going on? Definitely Kufal and Souček, or Soufal and Kuchek, whichever one you like. They beat the Israelis in the Nations League 2-1 away on Sunday, and then away to Cyprus they won by the same scoreline on the Wednesday beforehand. Obviously good to have international players out because it means that we're a good side full of good players. But, do you want them to be, you're in that stage now, a bit like Mourinho is with Tottenham, where you're worried about minutes?
I think with the squad we've got, 21 men or 21 man now that Craig Dawson signed, is that I'm just worried and a bit protective over the lads, even if I don't love them. But those two are 2 players I'm really behind and really think that, well, Souček in particular, he's been huge for us since he got in, and there's no going away from that. He's given us a whole new dimension, whether that be off the ball or on the ball, and he's imperative that we keep him fit. Soufal's come in and filled a hole, and he looked really good against Leicester, but I'm happy for him because it's only his 9th cap as a 28-year-old, I think, and he's the type of player who's probably gone under the radar in Czech Republic, and now he's playing over here. The caps will start flooding in. So as long as they get back healthy and sound, mate, I'll be a happy man, but we've got to be careful because the squad is so thin.
Absolutely, not a lot we can do about that. I suppose they're both integral to that Czech Republic side. Jonesy, Craig Dawson, he's arrived on a season-long loan, 30 years of age, not quite the young, hungry superstar of which David Moyes was hoping to build a team full of players like that. Season-long loan, I think an option to buy him for £2 million at the end. I can't even keep a straight face saying it. I do agree with a lot of the stuff I've seen on Twitter this week about fans saying, get behind him, give him a chance. He hasn't even pulled on a shirt or kicked a ball in anger in a West Ham shirt yet. Definitely agree with that. I don't think too much of the anger or schneidiness has been aimed towards Dawson, more about the type of transfer that it is. But I know you tweeted about it in the week. What are your thoughts?
Well, no, I mean, I never say a bad word about Dawson. He's done nothing wrong. He's just signed a contract at a club willing to put him back in the Premier League. I've never been a fan of fans directing their anger directly towards a player just because they didn't want him to play for the football club. It's not their fault. They're going to sign a deal.
Have you seen any of that though?
I've seen not so much directly at him, but sort of comments about him and stuff like that. And first I was like, do we need him? What's the point of spending? I think the initial rumours were, we're going to pay £4 million for him. And I was like, no, do we really need to be investing money in a player like that? But then when they announced it was a loan deal, which I think caught everyone off guard with the player announcement, I thought, well, actually, it's probably a clever transfer, that, because we're not, we might have an option to buy, but we're not really tied in massively with that. We've only got him for the season. He's got bags of Premier League experience, and let's have it right. He's not going to go straight into the starting 11. He is going to be a backup this season. If we get injuries, which we will, because we always do with West Ham, then he'll play 10, 15 times probably in all comps. But he's not going to be a first choice, first name on a team sheet sort of signing. He is going to back up. And the fact he's alone and he's got experience, I'm not against it, and I'm going to back him. He's a West Ham player now. Never thought I'd ever see Craig Dawson in a West Ham shirt, so my dreams have come true. So yeah, I think it's a clever, risk-free signing, and it just adds squad depth, which we're desperate for.
Okay, you mentioned he's not going to play much. I do agree. I agree with you on that front, to be fair. I think
that's rare.
Yeah. But it is. It's just like you say, it's an extra body. You can't get too angry about a signing like that as a standalone signing. You can get angry about it in the context in which it's made, i.e., the world-class football in a world-class stadium thing, the graded in Ghana stuff, blah, blah, blah. But again, give them a bit of time, because if we sign Josh King and or Saeed Benrahma, which at this stage in the podcast still isn't 100% done, but looking like it's going to be announced momentarily. Benrahma, that is, of course. If we pull one of those in, then at least that money has been spent somewhere. Do you think, Jonesy, then just actually, Tom, what Jonesy said there about squad depth, not going to start in 11, etc., do you think he gets in, or even Diop for the Spurs game, or do you think Moyes, because we mentioned it last week, Balbuena and certainly Ogbonna, every one of those back three played really well, does he just start the same 11 that performed so well at Leicester?
I think you have to. I really do think you have to. And I think that Balbuena's come in and proved that he's probably played against two of the people you'd almost, as an opposition, want to match up against Balbuena. They got pace in behind, they got width. They can easily isolate Balbuena. He's the type of person who gets caught high up the pitch, and he's negated all those threats and against some seriously tough opposition. So I think he definitely deserves a shot at playing. I think Diop, like I've said many times, is a brilliant centre-half on his day, but he's been off it recently. He's been getting caught up so high up the pitch. He's been losing headers, misjudging it in his own box, and I think he needed a bit of a break from first-team action. So I think Balbuena needs to go, and Craig Dawson, like Jones and both of you said, it's not his fault he signed. Don't get me wrong. It's nowhere near the level we should be looking to sign. It's nowhere near the talent pool we should even be fishing in. But it's not his fault he signed. He's not a terrible footballer. We've signed worse players like Emmanuel Pogatet to name but a few. But the only one is, it's good, all well and good going out and get him, but we've got 3 or 4 people who can play centre back, but we've only got one left-footed centre half. Well, 2 left-footed centre halves. One's Aaron Cresswell, left back, and the other one plays centrally. So if Cresswell was to go down, we wouldn't have anyone who could play there unless they're right-footed, which would cause a bit of a problem. So I think that's the weirdness about the signing. But I can't blame him. Get him in. Why not? He's a body, and I'm sure he'll give a lot for the club.
Absolutely. And what?
Sorry, just on that. We actually got tweeted some stats by a stats company not long after the announcement, and apparently he played left-sided centre half after the restart for Watford, and he was in better form in that position than he was when he played on the right side. before lockdown. So maybe the
I'm
club's
sure that did.
the
I'm
club
sure
has
that
seen
did
those
come into
stats and gone. He was just a lot better with the ball. I haven't got the stats at hand, so I can't go into too much detail. But it did say that after the restart, he played left-sided centre half and he was better with his stats. So maybe that's the reason why. But it could just be completely untrue. I don't know, mate.
Well, you never know. Look, we've skirted around the two issues. Just quickly, Tom, Josh Cullen obviously made his £1 million move to Anderlecht, which was one that certainly Jonesy was a little bit confused by. Obviously, we do have a wealth of, I say a wealth. We've got more midfielders than we have in some other positions. I don't think it can be referred to as a wealth anywhere in anywhere in football. But an emotional goodbye from Cullen. It was nice to hear. Obviously, a big West Ham fan, Tom, but it's not one we covered it last week. Not one that is, it's just a nice touch, but won't miss him too much, will we?
No, exactly. On the playing side of things, I think he was never really going to break into first team, make a major impact. Maybe squad depth, we could have used him. But in terms of message, I'm proud that he's one of us and we brought him through as a West Ham fan, because if I was in the same situation and left my boy club, I'd feel like I really want to desperately speak to the people who made it special. And he came out and did that eloquently in a proper man's way. Didn't shirk anything, said he enjoyed it and didn't come out pointing fingers about why he isn't there anymore. And he just said how much he loved it and how much he respects the fans and how much he will still be part of West Ham. Once you're in, you can't get out. And sadly, us three know that better than anyone.
Yeah, that's right. Look, lads, Josh King, Saeed Benrahma. I don't know what's going on with either of them, to be honest. It's been one of those weeks for transfer news that I've just thought, wait, someone come and tell me when he's holding the shirt up and they've announced the signing. It's been one of those for me. The Benrahma stuff, as we're recording, seems like it's going to happen. First of all, I don't understand it because of the Grady Diangana stuff. But what I want to ask first, James, we've put out a Twitter poll as usual. So I know we normally leave the Twitter poll until a little bit later in the show, but we asked the West Ham fans and the We Are West Ham listeners earlier on, nice and simple. Once again, if you had to pick, who would you prefer to sign, Saeed Benrahma or Josh King? Jonesy, what are the We Are West Ham listeners saying?
Runaway winner. And it's Saeed Benrahma is the winner. Just under 75% of fans
Baffling.
poll have voted for Benrahma. 25% for Josh King.
Baffling.
You seem so upset by that, but yeah, I mean it's a strange move given the decision to sell Diangana and David Sullivan coming out a couple of weeks later saying we sold him because we had too many wingers. I know Felipe Anderson has since left as well, but we sold a 21-year-old winger, highly promising winger for 18 million, and bought an older winger, highly promising, but an older winger for almost double that. And it's just a little bit like, well, is there a transfer strategy here, or have you just gone, well, we need to make another signing before this transfer window? Let's just get this guy in.
With the exact same amount of Premier League experience
exactly.
as Diangana.
It's if anything, less, because Diangana's actually made Premier League appearances before
and been in a Premier League squad. Yeah.
So it is baffling, but it's I don't really understand it. But if he comes, just like we said with Craig Dawson, we'll back him. He's an exciting player, one of the best players in the Championship. And we do. David Moyes does have quite a good record of buying from the Championship, so perhaps it might come good. But I just wonder where he's going to fit in. Given the way we're playing at the moment, it doesn't walk straight into the team for me. What happens to Fornals? It doesn't go straight in, so it's a lot of money to pay for a player that doesn't walk straight into your starting 11.
Tom, have you? I don't know if you've got the poll up in front of you at the moment. Have you?
I don't.
I'm just interested to see that a couple of the comments. Tom Toll, both would be a dream, but right now we need to prioritise the left flank, especially after letting Anderson go out on loan. Buying another striker would be counterintuitive. Now, that first sentence, I sort of agree with Tom. I don't know about prioritising it, but what a weird sentence that we need to prioritise the left flank. Not a weird sentence from Tom, but a weird sentence. Why are we saying that after everyone kicked off? Because it's crazy. No one seems to be addressing the fact that only a few weeks ago, West Ham released an official statement excusing themselves from selling Grady Diangana, in which they said, we have got too many wingers. Now, we're putting a poll out and West Ham are going, no, we need to get Benrahma in because we need left wing. Like, what is going on? What is happening? But no one seems to be thinking it's crazy like I do.
Our thing is with me, the reason I don't think it's crazy is that our transfer policy has been awful and it's been warped since I've been a fan. It's been terrible. I come to expect this thing. But what I will say about this bloke is 17 goals in Championship last year, 9 assists. He's unbelievably talented. He is the type of player you go and you pay to watch. He isn't just a workhorse. He's a guy who can change a game and shift in an instant. We've gone about it all wrong. Diangana should still absolutely be at the club. They even play in 2 different positions, the blokes. One plays on the right, the other plays on the left. So it just doesn't make any sense. You're not replacing Diangana by getting Benrahma in. You're replacing Anderson, who's only on loan. We should have gone about it better. We should have been better in the market and sold him. But at the end of the day, if we do get him in, there's a reason he's 30 million. It's a bit odd no one else came in for him, but he's a top player. And I think in a few months, I think we'll be waxing lyrical about him. He's a more talented player than anyone else in our squad in terms of unlocking defences and doing the random stuff that no one else can do. I'm not saying he'll be more effective than a Bowen who's got that directness and that quick adjust to Premier League. But I think Benrahma will be a big fan favourite if he gets it right. But it's incredibly bizarre the way we've gone about it. We aren't replacing Diangana because they're different positions. We aren't getting a centre-half for 35 million or whatever we should have got. We ended up getting the player who everyone apparently wanted this window from the Evertons, West Hams, but no one else got. So we're picking him up now. And without a centre-half, we got Craig Dawson in there. So it's a weird one, but I am actually excited to get him in, to be honest. And I'm really excited to see what he can do for us because he is one of those players who can pull something out of nothing.
Anything less than peak Lanzini, he's not worth it. And that's what I'm expecting. Anything less than peak Lanzini. Just quickly on the other comments, John Goodman says, why not Bournemouth? Why not both? Sorry, Bournemouth wouldn't mind instalments. Greg, Bournemouth are eager to get him off the books as his wages are high. They'd likely take a down payment and instalments. John Goodman, again, I'll push for a loan. I mean, I was surprised that 74% of people would rather see Said Benrahma than Josh King. I think Josh King would be absolutely brilliant. He's basically, I think, a B-Tech Mark Arnautovic with room for improvement. He's quite all action. He can get up in the air. He can win headers. He can put the ball in on the floor. I think he suits the style a lot better than certainly Haller does. I saw your piece, James, in Blowing Bubbles magazine this week that we both write for about Haller, and you made a good point. Just said he's a great player. It would be a shame for it not to work out. But it seems like too much would need to change system-wise for us to play to his strengths. And I think Josh King would fit into the style we play brilliantly. And I think he would be an absolutely phenomenal signing. And certainly then I think it would be, for me anyway, an easier pill to swallow if the 17-ish million quid that it looks like Bournemouth want for him, that's basically all the Diangana money. And then I think that would be a swap well made. Just quickly, Jonesy, couple more just quick ones. The Danish 20-year-old centre-back Fredrik Alves Ibson set to complete a deal for him, and also interested in Preston's Ben Davis. What can you tell us about those in 1 minute and 16 seconds?
Not a great deal, mate. I saw a report sort of late this afternoon about this young Danish 20-year-old centre-half, Fredrik Alves Ibsen. Apparently we're going to sign him. I think it's just over £1 million deal, and he's going to join officially in January, apparently. I think that report's coming from Denmark and being sort of rehashed over here. And Ben Davis, highly rated Preston centre-half. I don't know whether there's a lot of truth in that. I think that's probably a little bit hearsay, given West Ham's desperation to bring in some centre-backs, highlighted by the fact we bought Craig Dawson. But we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. Well, stay with us because next up we've got our first guest of the show, Chad Yeomans from Betway, to talk about the winnings that I had in the Leicester game and our bets for the Spurs game this weekend. So you are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards, and the most boring voice in England, James Jones. I'm delighted to say that after the views, news, and all of the insight that we got from the chaps just on the Craig Dawson staff, Declan Rice being the best central midfielder in England and indeed the world, and Kufau and Souček still being best mates for Czech Republic. I'm delighted that we're moving on swiftly to the Betway charity bet section. We announced last week that we finally had a winner. I claimed 60 quid for the Bobby Moore Fund, and as Chad from Betway agreed or kindly told us at the beginning of the season, Betway are going to be matching all of our winnings at the end of the season. So that's 120 quid for the Bobby Moore Fund in the bag already. James Jones and Tom Edwards were desperately unlucky. I'm delighted to say Chad's joining us tonight. He was unable to dial in last week because his brand spanking new house still didn't have Wi-Fi yet. Chad, I'm glad you've caught up, connected to the 21st century, and we had our first winner last week.
We did indeed. Congratulations, mate. I thought it was superb, and to be honest, I was really close, wasn't it, to everyone getting over the line for the first time. So actually what I wanted to do live on the podcast was say that it was such a good effort. I'm going to match whatever Will won. So I'm going to put £60 into each of your charity pots. So you're all on the board with a little bit of cash. So now, here we go, starting with £60 in each of you. So Will, you actually took one for the team here, mate.
Yeah, great stuff. That's brilliant news. Thanks very much, Chad, Tom and James. I'm sure Dylan, Tom Beattie's mum, Tracy, James, and Isla's mum, Nikki, will be delighted with that news. Chad, that's great stuff. And another piece of good news. This is obviously a segment that's been running a few weeks now. We're glad to finally get some money on the board. Had speaking in the last couple of days. We're hoping to have Stephanie Moore on, wife and widow of the great man Bobby, to discuss her work. She was the lady who set up the Bobby Moore Fund originally, so we're hoping to get Stephanie on in the next few weeks to discuss the great work that we're trying to do, and the great work, of course, that the Bobby Moore Fund are trying to do. Chad, you've said to a few of us recently, particularly me, about being a little bit more brave with our selections. I'm absolutely thrilled that I finally got some money on the board. We've gone, or I said to you earlier that we've gone a little bit braver, and you said, yeah, just about. It's not massively this week, but now the money's on the board. Were you impressed with our selections, or do you still need me to go a bit more?
No, if we're looking back at the results, yes, you've got money on the board before the others, but we were literally only one disallowed goal away from actually quite a decent payout. James, yours would have been 275, and Tom, yours is going to be 112.50. So and they're not massively different, just maybe a little bit more support for the Hammers. I'm now looking forward to this week. Tom has certainly put his faith in the Hammers against the Spurs, who have been phenomenal this season. The way they kind of tore apart Man United, who were abysmal, don't get me wrong. And there are people, Harry Redknapp, I know, went on TalkSport and was saying that he thinks they could win the Premier League. And I think they're still a little bit away off that, but they are playing so smart. And Jose does get these teams to win, doesn't he? So it's going to be a very difficult game this weekend. But you'd rather the Hammers be going into it with 6 points at the last possible 6.
On the back of some good form. Jonesy, do you want to let everyone know for this week's game with Tottenham what you've gone for this week with your £50 that Betway have given us to place on a bet, which the winnings, of course, for you going to the DT38 Dylan Tompides Foundation.
Yeah, of course. I played it safe again because I'm just so desperate to get some money on the board. But both teams to score to begin with. Although we've kept 2 clean sheets, I think Tottenham's attack is probably definitely up there as one of the best in the Premier League at the moment. And with Gareth Bale potentially playing a part in one way or another, and he used to love a go against us. So I can't see us keeping a clean sheet, even with Craig Dawson at the back. So I've got both teams to score. What? Best defender in the Premier League. What are you talking about? Over 2.5 goals, as we've seen, there's goals all over the Premier League at the moment, and I think playing it safe there with 2.5 goals, and then over 8.5 corners. I think the last couple of games there's been quite a lot of corners in West Ham fixtures and Spurs as well, so that kind of made sense. So I don't know what the price is on that yet, but it's a play it safe bet I think this weekend. But just eager to win one, chaps.
As always. As always, the We Are West Ham listeners, Chad can go on the Betway website and the app to place the We Are West Ham bets. It's under the Bet Your Way section. If fans just scroll down on that, they'll find the bets for me, James, and Tom. What are you saying about Jonesy's this week? Are you confident they'll win some money legitimately rather than relying on handouts from you?
Do you know what? I think so. I think this is the week you'll actually earn some money, so to speak. I do think both teams will score. I do think Spurs are still vulnerable at the back. They're really good going forward, but they still are really vulnerable at the back. Over 2.5 goals seems likely. And as you say, there are plenty of corners in games at the moment with teams playing on the attack all the time. So yeah, likely, very likely this week, Jonesy.
Tom, what have you, just let everyone else at home know, what have you gone for your bet to try and win some money for Isla's fight?
As seems to be the pattern with me, I've gone both teams to score, and now I've gone for Soufal. It is, lads, by the way. Soufal to be booked.
You lost that fight, mate. It's Kufal.
Yeah, you lost it.
Soufal. And then I've gone for West Ham to win. I just fancy us. I don't fancy us at all, but Chad's made me believe in this way of doing things, and I'm so behind it because I couldn't win on a Spurs win. I'd be so upset myself if I backed them. So I'm all for it, Chad. And I think, fingers crossed, you never know, because last time I backed us against Leicester and we got the job done. So here we go.
Absolutely, man. Your price will always be bigger if you're playing against one of the top 6 sides. So there'll always be bigger odds and in turn, bigger returns. Looking at, I don't know if it's Soufal or Kufal. I'll go with Kufal because that's whatever the maths thing to say. He's already been booked twice this season, once for West Ham, once for his previous club. Booked 5 times last season and booked 7 times the season before. Never been sent off. Or not in the last 4 seasons anyway. So he is prone to getting a yellow card. He's prone to leaving one late. Both teams to score, as we know. Yeah, I think that's likely. And West Ham to win would be amazing, wouldn't it? I think we are in fantastic form.
That is true. Chad, we've got Charlie Eccleshare, the Tottenham correspondent for The Athletic, coming on later in the show. And we're going to, of course, ask him about Gareth Bale. And it seems very likely that he'll certainly be involved. Whether or not he'll start or not, Tottenham winning 6-1 at Old Trafford last time. I mean, how do you change that sort of winning team? But I've gone with Gareth Bale to score a goal in both halves and over 3.5 total goals. Do you think that's something, obviously, that is liable to change? I may change that later in the week if it looks like Bale's not going to play at all. But you sort of, I felt like I was being a little bit braver. You got to give me something.
There's a little bit there, mate. There's a little bit there. But I still think you've got to start siding with the Hammers. I mean, let's look at Bale. Bale might not even play. And if he does, he's probably going to have half an hour, maybe 20 minutes. Will the game be over by then? Or is he going to come on and potentially change the game? It's going to be... It will be a proper game as well. They're going to go hell for leather from the start. I don't think Spurs are going to knock as many past West Ham as they did past United. I don't think any team this season are going to look as frail as United did at the back. I mean, they're all at 6. They must have been out the night before. It was absolutely insane. Just nobody was switched on. And you've looked defensively so compact in the last few games.
Yeah, I was a little, because I decided to go over 3.5 goals. I've done 2.5 most of the time this season. And although, I would like to see a few goals in the game, you could also see it being a really solid, you could easily see it being a 1-0, couldn't you? Both teams putting in really organised defensive displays. Mourinho is renowned for that. Both teams, certainly West Ham in recent weeks, have liked to sit back and then counter-attack, which is what Spurs, they're famed for that as well. You could also easily see it being a 1-0, but I agree. I've just got a feeling it's going to be one of those classic West Ham Tottenham games, and I'm hoping might be able to bag a few quid. So Chad, as has been happening most of the time this season, if fans want to back our bets, that'll be on around sort of Friday-ish this week. Do you think?
Yeah, mate. Friday morning, we'll publish the blog on the Betway Insider, and they'll all be on the match selection and on the pre-built bet selection on the Bet Your Way bit. So quite easy to find under each of your names. There'll be a corresponding price attached to that then as well.
Absolutely. Well, on the Jonesy, we'll be tweeting out, won't we, off the We Are West Ham Twitter account, all of our bets and the prices when they come out later in the week for fans if they want to back them on the Betway website. Chad, thanks very much on behalf of these two for the extra money that you've put on the board, so the league table doesn't look quite as embarrassing when it goes up on Twitter every week. But we appreciate that. And here's hoping for a Spurs win. If I was going to, Chad, if I'm when I'm going to back my own bet, as I do every week on the Betway app later this week, for a bit more of an outsider, a bit more of a longer odds bet, what would you be encouraging me to go for?
You put me on the spot with this one. I do think you're probably going to find that Yarmolenko is going to play a huge part if he plays. I do think, the way Spurs are going to set up, I think the game's going to have set-piece goals. So tall players to score from set-pieces, I think is going to be good. So whether you're going to start doing anytime goal scorers and putting in some defenders to get your prices up, they're going to be where the anytime goal scorers on a defender is roughly between 8 and 16 to 1. So that's where you start boosting things up. So that would be my selections. That's how to try and carve into what I'm thinking.
To try and entice you. I fancy Souček perhaps for a header. But Chad, thanks very much as always for joining us. Certainly thanks for the money for the lads to kick them off for this season. And we look forward to speaking to you again in a couple of weeks, hopefully.
Absolute pleasure to be on again, gents.
Nice one. Thanks, Chad. And stay with us because next up we'll go through the headlines of the week. Josh Cullen's emotional farewell letter. I'm expecting some tears from Tom Edwards and Josh King. Do we want him or not? Stay with us for all of that next. So we listen to the We Are West Ham listeners have their say then on the Saeed Benrahma or Josh King transfer saga. And now I'm delighted to say, once again, we're joined by an outstanding guest for our opposition view. Huge game, probably the biggest of the season for a lot of West Ham fans. Spurs coming up on the weekend. And I'm delighted to say we're joined by Tottenham correspondent for The Athletic, Charlie Eccleshare. Charlie, thanks very much for joining us. I think there's one question on every West Ham fan's mind, or there certainly was before the old Project Big Picture thing came along. But Gareth Bale, it was always going to happen when he turned up at Tottenham. The news came out within hours that his first game was likely to be against West Ham. Most Hammers fans have got quite painful memories of Gareth pinging them in from 40, 50, 60 yards against us to break our hearts last minute. It looks like, what's the chances, in your opinion? Is he going to play on the weekend? Will he start, or is he coming off the bench?
Yeah, the expectation is that he will be involved. As to whether he starts, I don't know. It's a tough one for Mourinho because obviously they're in such good form. They won the last game 6-1. So do you stick with that formula? But then it's Gareth Bale. So it is a tricky one. It may also depend on if some of Tottenham's international contingent pick up injuries, whether that opens up a space for Bale. But yeah, we are expecting to see him at some point. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news.
Well, that would make quite almost a convenient excuse, would it not, to Mourinho? You forgive me if I'm not sure off the top of my head, but has Lucas Moura or Son, have they gone away long distance with Spurs? So is it one of those he could say, look, I'm just resting you. You've had a long journey, and Gareth's coming in. Yeah,
he could. I mean, he, and it's Bale after all, so he doesn't really need to justify it, I suppose. You know what I mean? And I think I did a piece earlier in the week kind of answering reader questions, and one was about whether Bale would make his debut. And I made the point that I think one thing Spurs have done well at the moment is if you've played well, you've generally kept your place. And I think that's important. But then when it's Bale, do you just make that exception? So yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Charlie, do you think that Bale can really fulfil the hype that surrounded his return to Spurs? I mean, the back end of his Real Madrid career wasn't great, wasn't playing very often, and obviously that was down to a number of different things. But there's been so much hype, and rightly so, about his return to Spurs. Do you think there's a danger that it might just turn into a bit of a romantic yet sort of unfulfilled return to North London for Gareth Bale?
It could do. I mean, that is the fear, isn't it? That that idea of never go back, because it could. I wouldn't say tarnish the legacy, but it can, not be quite as good. And obviously it's 7 years on, and Gareth Bale at 31 is a very different beast to at 24. I guess the flip side is that he does come back with 4 Champions League titles, 2 La Ligas. He is a kind of proven winner now. So there is that risk. And I guess the other concern would be injuries. Obviously, he's come carrying an injury, and that's why he hasn't played till now. And he is someone who at Real Madrid suffered quite a lot of injuries. But I think at the moment, so I think that definitely is a possibility. I think at the moment, the feeling amongst Spurs fans is more just excitement and anticipation. But that's why it'll be really interesting. I mean, I think, obviously everyone knows Gareth Bale, knows what he's about, but it will be so interesting on Sunday and then in the weeks beyond, seeing kind of the different version of Gareth Bale. He's not going to be the kind of Roy of the Rovers, picking the ball up, charging past 4 or 5 players and smashing one in. I just don't think he's that player anymore, but he still could well be very, very effective. And I guess for your guys' sake, you're just hoping he kind of takes a little bit of time to settle and doesn't hit the ground running on Sunday.
Charlie, this last few weeks, Harry Redknapp, Jamie O'Hara, and a number of other people have come out and sort of tipped Spurs to maybe even have a crack at the league title this year. Do you think that that's people getting ahead of themselves in the hysteria of Gareth Bale and having Mourinho in charge, obviously a serial winner? What is the expectation now at Tottenham with all these people there? Are they rising, or is it still get Champions League?
I think it's odd at this stage of the season, isn't it? Things change so quickly because you're dealing with such small sample sizes. So on the first weekend, Spurs lost at home to Everton, and it was all doom and gloom. And it was, oh my God, this team are dysfunctional. They can't really play. And then you have a few wins, a couple of signings, and it does all change. And that's certainly what's happened at Tottenham. And as you say, guys like Harry Redknapp are saying they could make a crack at the title. And I think that's partly based on the fact that Liverpool and City have looked oddly vulnerable. I still think over the course of a 38 game season, top 4 is probably a more realistic aim. And they've actually got 4 games coming up that they would identify as fairly winnable. I think it's West Ham, it's Burnley, Brighton, West Brom, but then they've got a horrible run where 4 of their 5 games are against City, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Liverpool. And so I think we'll have a much better idea kind of by that point, which takes us through to about sometime in December, as to whether they're kind of top 4 or could even be title challengers, or it may be doom and gloom again. I'm sure you guys have felt that, with West Ham, that it looked at doom and gloom and then a couple of great wins and you're thinking, hold on a minute, we could really do something here. So yeah, I think this is probably a cop-out answer, but I would say, early December, have a much better idea of kind of whether guys like Harry Redknapp were getting ahead of themselves or whether they are genuine title contenders.
Yeah, we'll forgive you that cop out, Charlie. Just for the record, it definitely was, but we'll let you have it. One thing, it would be criminal of me while we've got you on. You obviously know the ins and outs of everything that's going on at Tottenham. While the project Big Picture that's come out this week, Tottenham have been fairly quiet on the matter. Have understandably a lot of big clubs at this stage we're at now. Tottenham are included in that Big Six group. Obviously, Liverpool and Man United, the leaders, and somehow West Ham have wormed their way into the golden group, or however you want to bill it. What's your sort of understanding on that, and particularly as far as sort of Tottenham's take on it all? Because to be honest, to most people watching from afar, it wouldn't surprise them from a cynical point of view to see Tottenham involved in that, because they've done so well to establish themselves as one of the Big Six.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, like the way you kind of look at it from a West Ham point of view, you're thinking, we've done all right here, haven't we? We're in that permanent 9 group. And I think for Spurs, it's something similar, that this is a team who, haven't won the league in coming up to 60, the top flight in coming up to 60 years. And so to be in that top 6 group speaks really to kind of the turnaround of the last 10 years or so. Under Daniel Levy's stewardship, and they've become Champions League regulars. The dial has completely shifted for them, and so they're not speaking publicly about this. But I think it stands to reason that for them to be put in this bracket of the Big Six, which is if this all goes through, that's kind of going to entrench those teams at the top of the game. So I don't think it takes a huge leap of imagination to think that's going to be pretty favourable to them. It's actually kind of amazing to think that they are in that group. I saw, some people have been saying, I think they've won the league as many times as Preston. So, for them to be there is kind of remarkable. And like I say, it speaks to what they've done over the last 10 years. So we'll get a better sense of their, kind of formal position I think at the Premier League meetings tomorrow. And that's going to be so revealing. I mean, that's just going to be fireworks across the board. But look, if this all goes through, that's going to be pretty favourable for them. And the great thing about it is, from a PR perspective, it's not like it's Daniel Levy who's been leading it. It's Liverpool and United who are getting all the heat, so they can kind of be like, look, we're just kind of going along with what we've been told and asked.
But we're more than happy to. Yeah.
Well, exactly. But in the same way, for you as West Ham, you'd be like, look, is this permanent 9 thing fair? Maybe not, but look, we want to be in that club.
I just read the latest thing I saw from the BBC that West Ham have been against the proposition. I'm sort of
really?
struggling. Yeah, I'm struggling to see why at this stage there will obviously be, given West Ham's track record of decision making, there will obviously be probably a financial reason for that. Sort of understandably, I think the general feeling at the moment among football fans seems to be that across the land, almost they're resigned to the fact that what really is good for football, and that they're resigned to the fact that finances will always be and are always elevated above what might be right for the game. So I mean, Tottenham and West Ham have both. You've seen the decision making of both clubs in recent years, and most at that top end of the Premier League, or certainly those who want to be. It does all come down to finances. Now, do you think, just from your point of view, as more of a general, while we've got you on, do you think, can you see it going through? Because it seems like everyone's crying out, or more so in the Premier League, crying out for it not to happen for the good of the competition, and to veer away from the more NFL style league. Can you see it going through, just in your opinion?
I was thinking, like, if you'd asked me this yesterday, I would probably have said no, I don't think so. But now I don't think it will go through kind of in this iteration. I think there'll be more kind of reforms to it. And I think to an extent it was, it was a first offer. I don't think it was necessarily expected that everyone's going to be like, yeah, absolutely, wave it through. But I am increasingly thinking that, like, a version of it could well go through. Just hearing today more and more of what clubs in the EFL are saying and how receptive a lot of them are. Because it's hard, like, when you're being offered like such a short-term carrot, to think of the long term. And you can say that's what's awful about it, that's what's predatory about it, but that's what makes me think, when you are in dire financial straits and you're being offered a lifeline, I just think that's going to be appealing to a lot of clubs. But it's going to be so interesting to see how it pans out.
It's a bit of a choice between, you either take death or a deal with the devil.
Exactly.
From most, and you can see clubs just picking the sort of the lesser of two evils, if you like. Charlie, just quickly before you go back to the game this weekend, just quickly, how do you see it going style wise, and then give us a quick score prediction before we let you go.
Yeah, I mean, you guys will know a lot better, obviously, about West Ham, but my sense is, certainly from seeing the Arsenal game, where I thought West Ham were really good and deserved certainly not to lose, and probably deserved to win, and they did a really good job of kind of stifling that Arsenal attack. And I expect they'll do something similar on Sunday. I don't know if they went 3 at the back that day. I don't know if you think they'll do that again, but certainly you would think they would go with a plan to frustrate Tottenham. And it'll be really interesting, because that is sometimes where they've struggled a bit more. Like, they've been more effective playing on the counter, teams who come out and attack them. And like United, obviously the fact they were the home team, and they're in theory, the team that finished third, they went at Spurs a bit more, which then left gaps in behind them to exploit. So it's going to be a real challenge for Tottenham up against a team that aren't going to do that, but are going to be disciplined, that are going to, defend well. That's something we have come to expect from David Moyes' teams, and obviously they've kept clean sheets in the last 2 games. So I don't think it's going to be one of those. I don't think Spurs are going to go and just, steamroll them at all. I think it's going to be a really tough afternoon. But I do think just the depth of that Tottenham squad means they have so many options on the bench. one of them may be Gareth Bale, as we've spoken about. So I think they'll have enough firepower to bring on to kind of just get over the line. And so I think prediction-wise, I'd probably go something like 2-1 to Tottenham.
2-1 to Tottenham. Well, we've had the last three opposition views we've had Wolves, Leicester, and now Tottenham, who've all predicted a win for Wolves, Leicester, and now Tottenham. And we've won the first two. So hopefully we can make it 3 out of 3 at the
You'll
weekend.
be relieved to know my predictions are generally really bad. So
it's good. Well, Charlie, if West Ham do win at the weekend after that, you can be assured of an invite back on the We Are West Ham podcast again. And of course, if we don't, then we'll never ever speak to you again. But thanks very much. Thanks very much for joining us, Charlie. We do appreciate it. Thanks to Retrain for sorting us out last week, and stay with us because it's Name That Game. Tom Edwards is the quizmaster next. Charlie Eccleshare, the Spurs correspondent for The Athletic. Excellent insight. Thanks again to friend of the podcast, West Ham correspondent Retrain, for putting us in touch with his esteemed colleague there. Some interesting thoughts from Charlie. It sounds like Gareth Bale will inevitably be scoring against West Ham at the weekend. So hopefully my bet comes in that we had with Chad from Betway earlier, and I can raise a bit more money for the Bobby Moore Fund and not rely on handouts like my two We Are West Ham colleagues. Lads, quizmaster Tom Edwards, Name That Game. It's a huge one this week. James Jones leads the leaderboard on 10 points. Me and Tom tied in second on 6 points after last week. An excellent one last week. Enjoyed it. But Tom, you're the quizmaster this week. So for those of you, I'm sure everyone who listens now would have got on board with the name of the game. 7 pieces of information Tom has got in front of him about a West Ham game from the past. Me and Jonesy get 1 point each for each one of them we guess. Tom will keep on reading them aloud until me or Jonesy want to have a guess. So shall we go straight into it, Jones, or have you got any pre-match thoughts?
No, let's get into it.
Into it. Tom, over to you.
Yeah, I'm going to get stuck in straight to it as well. I don't want to give anything away. And here we go. Obscure fact number 1 is that Declan Rice made his debut in this game.
I've got to go for the scoreline, haven't I?
Yeah.
Go 2-1.
That is correct.
Opposition goal scorer.
Opposition goal scorer for you, Will.
Chris Wood?
No. Throw it.
James, you've got a chance on opposition.
Got effort there. One opposition goal scorer.
Is it Vidra?
No, it's not. It's not.
Oh.
It's not, sadly. We move on. Don't we, lads?
I'll have a go.
Yeah. Go on.
Arnautovic?
No.
Oh.
Sofiane Feghouli.
Yes, he's got it. Yeah.
Oh, you're joking. But James, what are you glancing at? Anyone watching on YouTube at the moment will see James Jones' head continually turning to the left.
I'm looking at the running order. You can't even see it. Look, the running order.
Disgraceful stuff. Right.
Stadium.
Turf Moor.
That is correct.
Next.
Opponent for Jonesy.
Burnley.
Yeah.
Season was... what are we in now? How long has he been good for?
Forever.
Yeah, that is true. 90. He was last one. I'm going to go. 18, 19?
Incorrect.
Oh, no. I knew it. Why did I change my mind last minute?
It's 17, 18.
Incorrect.
Oh!
Incorrect.
Who knew? What are the scores? Has Jonesy won that outright?
Jonesy has won it outright because he's got 3, so he's 3-1 at the minute.
Absolute nightmare. You would know, of course, Tom Edwards picking a game from about 2 minutes ago because he's only been a fan for 5.
That's it, exactly that. But do you want to know? Do you want to know the meat of it?
Yeah, go on, Tom. Go on, give us a bit more.
Yeah, it was the last day of the season in the 16-17 season. That's what threw me as well. I was surprised it was as far back as that. But 16-17 season, 2-1. Sofiane Feghouli and the late great, brilliant Andre Ayew putting the other in and getting the assist. So and Andre Gray assisting Sam Vokes for them. So it wasn't exactly a blockbuster, but that started. I thought I'd make it current. I thought I'd make it a bit current for the man of the moment.
Because you had such a great week this week. So, Joe, just a quick top-up of the scores there. Jonesy, you've made your lead at the top of the table even more impressive. I've nipped 1 point ahead of Tom on 7. Jonesy, what are you on now? Is that 13 for you?
Yeah, 13 for me. Will, you're on 7 and Tom's on 6.
And it's back to
having played one less.
Back to me for Quizmaster next week as well. Well, that's fantastic stuff, Tom. Yeah, I do. We like a win at Burnley as well, don't we?
Yeah, we do. I remember the one when Sacco got one. Diafra Sacco in 3-1, was it? Valencia.
Yeah,
Valencia.
That was when we were like 4th at Christmas, weren't we? That season.
The Thunderbirds kit as well. I remember.
Yeah.
The Thunderbirds skit, absolutely. Well, look, 13 points for James Jones, 7 for me, and 6 for Tom Edwards means Jonesy's lead at the top of the Name That Game leaderboard is extended even more. Stay with us because next up we've got the final segment of the show, the West Ham Women, with women's football expert and sports journalist from The Sun, Isabel Barker. You are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast. Still, thanks for staying with us as always. And as always, again, we're wrapping up the show with the West Ham women's segment. I'm delighted to welcome back to the We Are West Ham podcast, Isabel Barker, women's football expert and sports journalist from The Sun. Isabel, great to have you back again. And you've been hanging out with broadcasting royalty this week, Mr. Alan Brazil from TalkSport Breakfast Show fame.
I know, and lucky my liver has survived. We met at about 11 in the morning and we're already drinking. So yeah, I've just about got through the week.
Great stuff. Yeah, for anyone who knows, he's got a new book out, am I right? For anyone who wants to pick up on that piece, it was in the Sun. You can get that interview online. But yeah, he's got a new book out.
Yeah, it's a new warts and all autobiography. Lots of funny, untold stories in there. Lots of emotional ones too. But yeah, it's definitely a good Christmas present or something like that. A bit early, but yeah, why not?
Lots of champagne as well, by the sounds of it. Well, look, we last time we spoke to you, we were talking with some measured optimism about the West Ham women's chances for the season. Been a bit of a rocky start since we last spoke to you, and since we last, obviously the women had an international break since we last spoke on the show. West Ham had a brilliant penalties win over Brighton after the 2-2 draw in the League Cup, and then unfortunately lost 3-1 to Everton in the WSL at the weekend. Kate Longhurst, after the game, coming out and apologising for her own performance, saying she doesn't know what the answers are, but she was really bad and she apologises. Matt Beard and Emily Van Egmond have come out and said they need to believe in themselves more. The girls are playing Man United at home this Sunday. It's starting to get a bit, I don't know, it's getting to that stage now where there seems to be quite a feeling of negativity around the team. I finished up watching the last episode of the Squad Goals documentary in the week, and there was that feeling last season as well of a lot of bickering in the squad, and although they had some good individuals, the ability for them to gel on the pitch seemed quite difficult. But yeah, what are you making of it so far, particularly after that good win at Brighton on penalties? Obviously, it was quite a feel-good factor, but it seems to have gone a little bit sour since.
Yeah, I think that's you've kind of hit the nail on the head. Those kind of like problems with the cohesion on the pitch and kind of having a go at each other's kind of reared its ugly head again, because they, as I've said before on this podcast, they've got such high quality in their squad, really high profile transfers. So they've really not had the start of the season that you would have expected. And I think that's what the manager's said as well. You know, it's not gone how we've expected, but then he's come out and said, oh, there's promise in some areas. Yeah, I think there is, in terms of that they've scored goals against two of the biggest sides in the WSL at this point, Arsenal and Everton, but they're shipping so many goals. You know, against that 9-1 against Arsenal and then 3 with Everton. So defensively, that's a really poor area for them. And I think there's so much quality in the squad that it's about the manager now to sort of step up and not give kind of a vague apology on Twitter, and to kind of really unite the squad, really. But yeah, the Brighton game was a really encouraging turning point. They grinded out a win against a Brighton side who drew with Man City, so a very strong Brighton side. But yeah, it's kind of gone downhill. It's a bit worrying because they've not even found a win in the WSL yet, and with all those big transfers, it's a sad sign.
Yes, but I think the last time you were on, I think it was just after that 9-1 defeat. You mentioned that you know the players. There's some really talented players, obviously, after those summer signings you just mentioned, and I think you mentioned back then that they need to realise how talented they are and actually believe themselves a little bit more. And then we've seen those lines come out. It runs deeper than that, doesn't it? It runs deeper than just sort of being a little bit more confident about your own ability now, isn't it? It's more. It seems like it's more tactical, and perhaps even, as you said before, like from a cohesion point of view, it's more about just believing in your own ability and actually making changes and actually doing things.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it, like, tactical, that's a massive point. That's why I'm kind of calling on the manager now, that he needs to step up and kind of not, because we've seen his team talks. We've had like a behind the scenes view of his team talks in the documentary, and it's a bit kind of like, yeah, go out there and play your best. And it's kind of like, no, you need to be tactical now and actually lead a lot of players that they're all from different, a lot of West Ham, I think, last season had the most women's players from different countries. They had all over the world. So it's really important to, factor in all their different strengths, unite them, and I'm sure they're all very tactically different. So he needs to unite that and bring that together. And yeah, it's that cohesion. But I'm also wondering, with the new signings that have come in, it's maybe a chance for him now. He needs to kind of maybe get rid of some of the players that have been in the squad for a while and aren't really showing up and performing, and to try something different.
Isabel, Matt Beard's been in charge since 2018. Obviously, he's done a wonderful job. He's taken us to an FA Cup final and all sorts during his time there. But with obviously the pressure of the documentaries that have been going on in the last 2 years, is there a suggestion that there's a bit of burnout from his side of things, or a breakdown in relationships? Is there any suggestion that maybe his time is coming to an end, or in the future that West Ham might look to move on from him?
I think that's a really good point, because no one's denying that he's a brilliant manager in the women's game. He's taken Liverpool to WSL titles and, like you say, an FA Cup final with West Ham. But and the players really respect him. Gilly Flaherty in that documentary so powerfully says, you guys wouldn't all be here if it wasn't for that manager. So he's obviously got a really good eye for recruitment. But I think, like you say, maybe it is time for a bit of a shake-up. And I guess it will be a test of how ruthless Sullivans are. I think Jack says in the documentary, like, I'm gonna, shake my own fist at him. But will that actually happen? And I guess maybe it is a bit of burnout.
Yeah, that's what struck me from watching it, the behind the scenes stuff. It just seemed a little bit Sunday League manager. I remember being on the end of team talks like that when I was over the local park, and there was just about scraped an 11, and 9 of them were all hungover, and you had one of the blokes just shout, "Come on, just get out there and get stuck in." Yeah, exactly. But and it just seemed the elite level at which West Ham are trying to compete, it just did seem a little bit, I don't know, and it seemed, again, just from, you obviously saw small snippets, but you've got players like Kenza Dali, for example, huge name, played for France, played for some huge clubs in PSG obviously as well, and sitting there, and it almost felt a bit like, hang on, is this as good as it gets? Is this, just being barked at? I'm used to better than this. Do you think with those new signings, like you say, because they're from different environments, because Matt's quite rough and ready, and I would say pretty stereotypically old school British, if you like, do you think that is perhaps maybe lost on some of the foreign stars they've got in that side?
Yeah, I think that is a really good point. And I think a lot of those players found it really difficult to settle in because, like you say, I think coming to West Ham Women, possibly the most like typically, I don't know, London club of the league, and with, you know, Gilly and Matt at the helm of it. But so yeah, I think there needs to be some emphasis on the tactical side of things and where these players have come from, like Kenza Darley. I mean, she's, as you say, she's used to Lyon and PSG, and Lyon, the biggest winning mentality in the whole of women's football. And so, yeah, maybe it's just a bit of a mismatch there, but I think they need some real strong leadership going forward. And whether that's maybe someone like Gilly kind of stepping up a bit and kind of helping the girls a bit more, then that might be better for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Isabel, it's Man United at home this Sunday for the girls. What's your take on that game? I understand you're at the North London derby in the WSL rather than West Ham this week. But what are you expecting from the Hammers?
Well, I was at Man United's most recent game against Spurs, and I do think Man United, they've only been a team for 2 years now, but they're already looking like a side that's going to break into the top 3. They're looking really good. And if I had to say a worse team for West Ham to face right now, it might be Man United, because they've just recently signed Kristen Press, Tobin Heath, 2 massive USA World Cup winners. But then again, a side like Spurs, who West Ham drew with, Man United only scored 1 against Spurs. So West Ham definitely have a shot at that. And like I said, they have really good open attacking play. They can score goals from open play, like with last time Kenza Darley, but also Adriana Leon. She's brilliant at breaking free in front of goal. If they can let that happen, they'll really shake up Man United and put them under pressure.
Well, Isabel, before we let you go, West Ham, 4 games played, failed to get a win on the board yet. 4 games, 1 draw, 3 defeats. Not good with that minus 11 goal difference. Is the second worst in the league after that 9-1 thrashing by Arsenal. United sitting pretty in 4th at the moment, played 4, 1-3, drawn 1, still unbeaten. So a tall order indeed. Can we just grab a quick score prediction off you before you go?
Well, I know this is a West Ham podcast, but I just think United are on fire at the minute, so it's probably going to be 3-2. I expect a fair few goals, though, because West Ham are brilliant in attacking. But yeah, I think United will probably win that one.
You can have a 3-2 to United. Isabel, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on again. Thanks, as always, for joining us. Isabel suggesting there that West Ham are going to fall 3-2 to Manchester United in the WSL this weekend. But whatever happens, the girls need to do something quickly because they're still without a win in the WSL. But stay with us, because next up we've got James Jones and some final thoughts to see whether he thinks he's been as boring and as sleep-inducing as some of our fans think he is. So, Isabel, not very confident for the West Ham women this Sunday, home to Manchester United. But I sense a feeling of confidence among you lads about West Ham men's fixture against Tottenham this weekend. Just quickly, because we didn't do them earlier, Charlie thinking Spurs, Charlie Eccleshare from The Athletic thinking Spurs will edge it. Quick score predictions from you, Jonesy, and then give us some final thoughts on the show.
I don't think we're gonna beat them as much as I'd love it, but we do turn up against Spurs, don't we? But I'm gonna go for a score draw at Desmond. My favourite prediction. I haven't brought one of those out for a while, so right. I'm gonna go for 2-2. But yeah, I don't see us getting turned over like United did against Spurs. Our defensive record over the last couple of games says a lot. I think David Moyes and tactical genius Alan Irvine have got us playing really well at the moment and just very well drilled defensively. And going forward, we've been a threat all season, even when we've been losing, so or not winning. So yeah, it'd be a tight game, and I see there being goals. So yeah, 2-2. I fancy it.
2-2. Tom, score prediction for Spurs away this weekend, and some summary thoughts on the show from you. Craig Dawson arrives. Saeed Benrahma still not quite done at the end of this podcast on Tuesday evening. Looks imminent. Josh King perhaps coming in. Loads we've discussed tonight. What are you saying?
I'm saying, I know I bet on West Ham to win, but just so I can have a few bases covered, I'm going to go 1-1 because, like Jonesy said, I think it'll be quite a tight game. I think that we might hit them on the counter-attack, but they've got so much quality. I'd expect them to score, and scoring 2 past them probably won't happen. But we'll see. Fingers crossed. I'm not writing off a win. Overall, mate, I'm content with going in with 2 wins. Obviously, this transfer window has not been what we all would have liked it to be, but at least we've got a centre-half through the door finally. Whether that be starting or backup, it gives us more options, and we can probably play this system for the majority of the season. And if Benrahma comes in, I'll be a happy man. I'll be conducting the next podcast in a Benrahma 27 shirt, and you'll only be playing at that for the duration of it. But fingers crossed, mate, we get that over the line. It's a happy week, and we do something against Spurs, because then we'll be flying in. We all remember last Spurs podcast, so fingers crossed it's the polar opposite.
Absolutely. Well, it's only Manchester City up next after Tottenham, so another easy opposition for you, with, I'm sure, a guest predicting a win for West Ham. But Tom, did we get a score prediction off you then? I'm just going to copy James, because I do think of Desmond. What was yours?
I said 1-1. I said 1-1.
1-1, 2-2 from me and Jonesy. So score draws all round. Hopefully we win some money for our Betway bets. Just a reminder, as always, to follow us on Twitter at @WeAre_West Ham. And remember that this week we are giving away a free replica shirt for this season, home, away or third, whatever the winner's choice. Whatever they pick, they can have on behalf of We Are West Ham. So head over to WeAre_West Ham on Twitter for the instructions and the tweet for that one. Follow us on YouTube. You can watch this show. Tom will get this up about middle of the day on the Wednesday. So if you listen to this early on Tuesday and you go down to the link in the description and the YouTube video isn't up yet, give it a couple of hours. Tom will have it up by middle of the day Wednesday. We're on Instagram as well. We're on Twitter. It's just come follow us. And if you want to write us another review, we're a little bit nervous. James didn't want me to say this bit this week, but I thought, you know what, whatever, we'll go for it anyway. If you want to go on, give us 2 stars, 3 stars, 4 stars, or 5. Write a little review. Tell us if you think one of us is boring. Tell us if you think we're not funny, and tell us if you think our predictions this weekend are rubbish. But as long as you go on and leave us a review, we will appreciate it, Phantom Hammer or not. But it's been a good show tonight. Thanks for all our guests: Chad Yeomans from Betway, Isabel Barker from The Sun, and Charlie Eccleshare from The Athletic. This feels good to support West Ham at the moment. Spurs away at the weekend. What a huge game. The first team other than Tottenham to win there. Why can't we do it again? Keep the faith, everyone. Up the hammers, and we'll see you next week.